There's two people working in a farm and they see a storm coming. One of them starts running away from the storm and the other one starts running into the storm. The one that starts running away from the storm keeps running and running and running and running. And every time he or she looks back, the storm is right there behind them. And this keeps on going on for the rest of their life. The other person who ran into the storm, they go through the storm, they get bruised, they get injured. It's tough, it's difficult. But after the storm passes, it's all sunny again. There's a rainbow and he's absolutely fine. And then he goes about living his day in life. That storm, it's no surprise, it's yours. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wiser Together. Thank you for joining us and being a part of this. We truly appreciate your support. Today's episode is about fears, and I want to start it with an analogy. There's two people working in a farm, and they see a storm coming. One of them starts running away from the storm, and the other one starts running into the storm. The one that starts running away from the storm keeps running and running and running and running. And every time he or she looks back, the storm is right there behind them. And this keeps on going on for the rest of their lives. The other person who ran into the storm, they go through the storm, they get bruised, they get injured. It's tough, it's difficult. But shortly after the storm passes, it's all sunny again. There's a rainbow and he's absolutely fine. And then he goes about living his day in life. That storm, it's no surprise, is your fear. If you keep running from it, you will keep running from it from the rest of your life. Every time you look behind, it will be there. And that's how fears hold power over us. But if you have courage and face them and run into them, yeah, you might get bruised, you might get injured, you might hurt yourself. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be easy. But after that storm passes, you'll be liberated. You won't be at the mercy of the storm chasing you for your whole life, right? And that's how fears are as well. What do you think of that analogy, first of all, Anas?
Absolutely, such is life. In life, most things which are supposed to make you grow, which are supposed to make you a better person or a superior version of yourself, are in that storm. And if, like the bull, you keep running away from things, yeah, momentarily you'll avoid the storm, you'll avoid the pain, but remember, like that storm is chasing you. So one way or the other, you're gonna get caught up in the storm. Might as well do it in your own terms. Like you gave the analogy about the bull. Go head in, and yeah, you're gonna get injured, scratch, bruise a little, but the value that you're gonna get out of that storm, and in particular the elimination of fear, that's just going to be valuable for the rest of your life, because once you're able to eliminate that fear, you're ready for the next step, you're ready for the next challenge, you're ready for a bigger storm.
Bigger storm, yeah. That's amazing. And I gave this analogy before mentioned bulls, but now we mentioned people just to make it more relatable. But it's the same thing, like be it a bull or a person. Uh, if you keep running from it, it'll always be behind you. But once you face it, you might get injured. But when you come out on the other side, you'll be a better person. Uh, and a fearless person. So let's just go over what fear is. It's just an unpleasant emotion caused by some sort of threat, I believe.
Yeah.
Fear isn't necessarily bad. There's two types of it: acute fear and chronic fear. Acute fear is that pops up momentarily in certain situations. That's actually good for you. It's trying to give you a message, an indication to do something, to move. Maybe let's say you're walking down on a quiet street late at night, and you hear some noises, and that fear peeks in. That's acute fear, and that's really good because it's trying to give you a message that you're not in the most safe space right now. uh, and it would then the fear would get you to act or get out of that space or find be in a position where you're more comfortable and safe. Chronic fear is what lives here, and that's what enslaves us for the rest of our lives. Fear only exists in our minds. It's only the thought of fear that gives power to the fear. Remove the thoughts of those fears in your mind, and it doesn't exist. And that's exactly why two people react very differently to a situation. Uh, One might be in fear looking at that situation, while as other might see an opportunity or excitement in that same situation. Let's say, for example, skydiving, right? So, like I mentioned, it's just something that lives within our mind. And why does it live within our mind? That has to do with your upbringing and how your subconscious mind developed at an early age. It's not in your control, right? So throughout your childhood, depending on how you were brought up and what your environment was, your subconscious mind develops and it holds certain fears uh, in the mind. But the problem isn't having a fear, it's how you respond to it. Once you have a fear and you have that thought, every time it repeats in your head, you live through that in your whole body. Your body cannot tell the difference between what the difference is in the outside environment. I could be sitting comfortably on a sofa watching TV, watching sharks, right? There is no way a shark would come into my lounge and do something harmful to me. But when I'm watching that movie and I'm watching sharks and I see, like you've seen, everybody's seen Jaws, right? When those action scenes are happening, you almost like clench and you feel momentarily for a second that you're in this situation, and body release those chemicals. Uh, but then your prefrontal cortex, your analytical mind, steps in and tells you and makes you aware of your environment. You're absolutely safe. There's no reason to be scared, and then you're okay. So I'm just trying to say that your body inside cannot tell the difference. So every time you have those thoughts of fear, you're living through that fear again and again and again, regardless of your external circumstances.
Oh, 100%. And this is something everyone can relate to. And I would just like to expand on one thing that you talked about was regarding skydiving. There's a very famous video of Will Smith, um,
Yeah,
where I think he's in Dubai, where he is trying to attempt to skydive for the first time, and he is scared. And we're talking about Will Smith, like a world-class actor, one of the best and highest paid actors in the world, right? Now he's scared of skydiving. I just want to take a very, very bad example, but let's say like an average person, right? They might be even scared to come on the screen or go on a stage to accept an award and speak in front of hundreds of people. But Will Smith is not scared of that, right? Will Smith is scared of skydiving, and that average person might not be scared of skydiving. So definitely, it's just about perception. It's just about person to person, whatever fear is established in their mind. Again, I think we can go back to one of our previous episodes where you've talked about conditioning.
the
If
box. Yeah,
the box, the conditioning, if, for example, let's just say in terms of fitness, right? If I grew up with David Goggins, that's an example that you've always given, right? If we grew up with David Goggins and every morning or every day, we're doing strenuous physical exercise, then running a marathon or marathon won't be difficult for us, right? Because in our mind, is just easy. What we perceive as easy, right? But again, just like with David Goggins, he had difficulty in academics and learning, and that might be like a fear that he had because of his brought up or whatever his circumstances were. So definitely, if fear exists only in the mind, and it just varies person to person. I've talked about Seneca as well. He says that we suffer more in imagination than reality, and
yeah,
it's just that anxiety, that dread, that feeling, like before even doing the thing, before even committing the act, and we're like making all these scenarios in our head. It can be anything, like going up to another person, and just asking them how they are, or trying to be friends with them. That's where fear of rejection also comes in. So these things, they're just like, it varies person to person, but everyone has experienced it.
Yeah. The saying you mentioned is so beautiful. We suffer more in imagination than reality. That's such a beautiful saying. Like, let's say you have a fear of skydiving. When you're going to face that fear and when you're in that position, yeah, you'll feel fear, but that'll be the only time. But every time that you think about it, every time you think about that fearful activity in anticipation of it, uh, you feel that feeling within your body, and your body reacts accordingly. Your
Can I
neurochemistry
add
reacts
one more
accordingly.
thing over here? Because
Yeah,
what you mentioned is amazing. I think, like we've always talked about, this has to be the number one dream killer. This has to be the thing that paralyzes people, because without even committing the act, without even doing it, the emotion, the scene that you're painting is what basically stops people from doing the things that they love, right?
yeah, yeah.
um they're just cooking things up inside their head about things that could go wrong. They're not thinking about the things that can go right. And with us as well, like, and I'm sure we're going to talk about our examples, but with many things in life, right? If we didn't take that step, right, we wouldn't have had done the things that we are really, really proud of. So I think it's just, fear is more than an emotion, more than all of those things that we talked about. It's the number one dream killer.
I couldn't agree more. And you can it doesn't take a genius to see that all around us, how fear really restricts people, and it sort of enslaves them, right? If you live in fear, you become reactive. You're stuck in those loop of thoughts, and the one thing I learned very recently, and it's changed my whole outlook on life, is that emotions are habits. Listen to this one again. Emotions are habits. How you feel emotions and how you react to different situations with different emotions, they're all habitual. It doesn't matter if you're going to jail or if you won a Ferrari in lottery. Your emotional pattern will remain the same. That's why there's people like, when they're miserable, no money, they're still miserable. They make so much money and they're still living in stress. They were in stress without money, they're in stress with money. So there was a quote that I heard, that your emotional pattern has nothing to do with your situation. Opportunities and crises only multiply your emotional pattern by 10 times. So whatever your emotional pattern is, you're going to feel the same and intensify it in a crisis or an opportunity.
Yeah, that explains a lot. That explains a lot, and a lot of mentality that we see around people as well. And I think between us as well, like, ever since we've been on this journey, we've been able to alter somewhat our emotional patterns as well. Whatever opportunities or crises are coming our way, we've been able to deal with them in a certain way as well. But I want to
But
ask
it's taken a
you,
lot of work, right? This
it's
isn't.
take
Yeah,
this is where I was coming as well, right? It takes work. There's
yeah.
no shortcut to it. There's no easy route to it. And what I wanted to ask you about is the medicine side of it, the pharmaceutical side of it, right? You have people who are in these fears, and they go to certain, um, I'm very bad at this, but psychiatrists, or like,
Yeah,
people
psychiatrist
who deal with, yeah,
or
people who deal,
psychologist, depends.
psychologists, yes. So, and often than not, I've seen that whatever their problem, whatever the root cause of their issue was never addressed, but they were always given medicines
Mm.
such as, I mean, if I read over here, antidepressants, benzos. This is what rappers talk about, beta blockers, and yeah, other anxiety blocking or anxiety suppressing medicines. And I think this has also Xanax as well. I think this has also become like a culture as well, that we see in movies, that we listen in rap songs as well. That all of these people are on these things, and they're just like not facing. It's like what you talked about, the bulls, right? They're just heading away from the storm, not
Yeah,
into it.
same thing. Same thing. It's like not curing the bruise but just applying a band-aid. And you have to apply that band-aid again and again and again for the rest of your life. The bruise is always going to be there. So that's one way of doing it, lazy way of doing it, not putting in any effort way of doing it. But and that's what most people do, and it affects them in more negative ways than why the problem began. Like there's so many side effects to these things. I'm not a huge fan of medicine. It does have its place in our healthcare system and in our bodies, but I'm not a big fan of it. There is so many majority of the things we take medicines for are curable by ourselves, and fear is one of them, right? So, like we were talking, it takes work, but not this kind of work. Psychiatrists would give you these medicines. If you go see a psychologist, that might be helpful in the sense because psychologists aren't allowed to prescribe medicines, they just talk. And through talking, they can make you more aware of your situation, where that fear stems from. The funny thing is that we're going to go over some chief fears later on, but those that fear isn't even the real fear, it stems from something else, and we'll come to that. But the biggest problem is that these emotions, fear being one of them, are habits, and we've been taught maths and science and history, but we've never been taught to deal with our emotions. Not from our parents, not from society, not from our family, and not in
Yeah,
school,
for
right?
sure.
And that is the biggest problem here. Fear isn't bad, it's how you respond to it is bad. I thrive off of my fear. It's what helps me grow. It's just uh, learning to respond to that, right? Yeah. So that you will realize isn't an easy thing to do. uh, Thoughts is the language of the mind, right? You get roughly 70,000 thoughts per day. 95% of these thoughts are the same as yesterday. So when you're living in fear yesterday, those same thoughts will repeat today, tomorrow, and day after, unless you do something to change them, right?
Like you said, thoughts are the language of the mind, and there are two examples that come to my mind that I encountered very recently. Jim Rohn, um, one of America's prominent entrepreneur figures, he says that whenever these things come to your mind, just ask yourself, why not you? Australian current or former Australian captain Pat Cummins. Again, Australians, when it comes down to cricket, they're absolute champions, they're absolute beasts. And you've had a variety of captains who've become champions. And I think his mother said that, people in the world are going to do wonderful things. Um, and why can't it be you? You might as well do it. Something along this line. And it's just mentality, it's just pure absolute mentality, and instilling those thoughts in the mind, like you said. Thoughts is the language of the mind. So when you incorporate these sort of thoughts in your mind, it changes the whole algorithm.
100%. I think it's not that we don't have potential, it's just the lack of belief. Like when we see something, someone do something inspirational, we never really have that belief in ourselves, oh, I could be that person as well. And that just comes from person to person, again going back to how we were programmed, right? There's one person, there was a very nice analogy, again I'll give you guys. Let's say there was the Boston Marathon shootings, right? There's a family of five sitting in the lounge watching TV there, and the Boston Marathon shooting happens, right? Do all five of them react the same way? No. One is crying, one is maybe in fear, goes into the room and is in fear that, oh, this will happen to me, and one is crying and is upset about it. The other one, there's a third person that's like, no, let's go help them. And there's a fourth person, he's like, goes and does his own stuff. So the situation on the outside hasn't changed. It's the same. These four people react so differently. It's along the spectrum of, uh, right? They're so different. So it just comes down to your programming, which is not in your control. But now that you're an adult, you're aware. You're aware of your subconscious mind. You're aware of your conscious mind. You're aware of your thoughts to some extent. There is work that needs to be done to overcome these fears. Not what fears you feel, but how you respond to those fears. This is a very common theme in Stoicism as well. It doesn't matter what happens to you, you're defined by how you react to life, not what happens to you, right? So, we'll cover some of our personal experiences and maybe go over what was holding us back and how we overcame them. uh, yeah, so do you want to start on us?
Oh yeah, for sure. Do you want me to lay out the seven chief fears briefly so that we can
Yeah,
take it from there?
yeah. So in research for this episode, we Anas came with not came with research and laid out seven chief fears that hold people back. When I was going through these, I could relate to them, but it wasn't that exact thing that was holding me back. When I track and trace it back to the origin, it's really something else. So let's go over it and then we can share our experiences and what we think of it.
Yeah, and I mean, for sure, we did the research, and I think the inspiration came from the Chris Knight episode. He talked about one of the fears, the fear of loss, which I think can be one of the biggest fears. But I don't know. You guys tell us. Comment below. Let us know whatever chief fear resonates with you the most. So here it goes. Number one is fear of death, the fear of the unknown and the end of existence. I think this is something that everyone can relate to, and I'm not sure. Like as you grow older, you fear dying or the other things, but definitely fear of death in certain situations can um, proliferate, such as I mean, when you might there's a turbulence in the plane and you're just thinking, damn, like this might be my last moment. So yeah, fear of death is always there, lurking around. Fear of failure, I think this is one of the fears that I resonate with. I'm going to go over in detail after, but yeah, it's just concerns about not meeting expectations or achieving your goal, right? It does not have to be academic, it can be anything in life. Every person has a certain amount of self-respect and integrity in their own eyes, and whatever value they hold themselves to. And despite even trying hard, if they're not able to meet their expectations, this can be a very stabbing feeling, if I may say. Fear of rejection, I think this is something all of us have been a part of, whether it's asking someone out or whether it's applying for a job, or I don't know, it can be with your friends, family as well, at your office as well, anything like just the fact that people might not accept you for who you are, or or whatever you're offering them. That can also be, I mean, no one likes to hear no, right? So this is what it's
Yeah,
it's all about.
could be social exclusion as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you're not like, for example, like you said, human beings are social animals. If they don't become a part of the tribe, then, if they're rejected, if they're
Affects them
isolated,
really.
absolutely. I mean, no man is a island, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
fear of rejection is definitely chief fear. Fear of pain or suffering, right? So this can be both physical or mental. Definitely involves anxiety and emotional distress, and physical pain as well. So this can come about in any shape or form. Like we talked about the skydive, right? You might be thinking that, damn, what happens, if the parachute doesn't open, or anything like this. So a lot of people might not even try a certain act or do a certain thing just because they're just fearful that it might end up in pain or suffering. Fear of the unknown. I think this is something we've talked about in a lot of our initial episodes. People really do not like change, and people really don't like the unknown. It really makes them uncomfortable, right? And uncertainty and lack of control over your future is just something, like I said, can lead to analysis paralysis as well. You might not even do the act just because you're so scared of the change that it may bring about. Now, this can be a very simple thing, such as changing your career, right? Or changing a certain group of friends, or changing a certain habit, right? Can be a ton of things, but right, like we always say, you must trust the process, and yeah, commit yourself. Fear of loneliness. This is definitely something that Chris also talked about, and I think this is something all of us at all stages of life might experience. And yeah, it's the feeling of dread. It's the feeling of just thinking what could happen if you're all alone by yourself without any company. So yeah, I'm going to definitely dive a little bit deeper into this. And lastly but not the least, fear of loss. So this can be anything: losing, like your material possession, losing your fellow human, your status, anything, just losing and attaching yourself to something that you thought was yours, and not having it anymore. Oh, it's just a devastating feeling. So yeah, these were the seven chief fears.
And amazing. Thank you for laying them out. I just want to point out again that all of these fears only exist in our thoughts, right? You might not even actually be lonely, but going through fear of loss. You might not even care that much about failure, but you just having repeating that thought of not meeting external expectations sort of makes you feel small. Fear of loss, like your possessions. Let's say some possession you have, you when you identify with it, you attach yourself to it, it becomes a part of your identity. And when you lose that thing, you feel like you lost a part of your identity, when where in the first place you're attached to nothing and nothing is attached to you. You're only attached to them in your thoughts, and that's why they don't serve you. So, and all of them are in the same way, like fear of pain. I don't think pain really even exists in the present moment. That's just a feeling. It only exists in our thoughts, which can be either in the past or in the future. Even if like something uh, happens where we suffer through it, and we have suffered through it, we've been through that moment, whatever it moment may be. You can choose a random one in your life. You've already gone through it. Why do you still suffer again and again and again? Because you think about it and you take your body to that past, and it reignites the same feelings, and it takes you through the same process of suffering, and that's why you feel it. But in the present moment, it does not exist, right? And that's why we say, like, every time you think of it, you give it power, and you feel it only in your thoughts. It does not exist in present moment. And there is no thoughts in present moment. That's why it doesn't exist in present moment. Uh, yeah, unless you were going to share some experience with us.
Yeah. So what I really want to talk about, first of all, is the fear of failure. And I wanted to put a twist on this. And look, everyone has their own way of dealing with their fear, their obstacles, etc., etc. And of course, these are mine. You're more than welcome to listen. You're more than welcome to dissect it and then make them your own. And yeah, so fear of failure, definitely, it's what I talked about. I have a certain expectation of myself. I always believe that and there is nothing that can equal a human being. We're just an amazing creation. And with that, and with many people that have come before us, they've done great things. So my thing has always been, the common theme is that why not you? Why can't you do amazing things? Why can it be you? And thus I have some expectations of myself. I have some goals that we've talked about, right? Our A, B, and C goals. But in particular, what I'm trying to talk about is the C goals, the goals which are crazy, which are just unimaginable,
Yeah.
incomprehensible to a lot of people, right? So um, that thing really, for me, really takes the cake. It's just something that sometimes might keep me up in the night, might influence a lot of my actions. um, I won't say on the verge or on the back of fear, but it's just the amount of expectation that I have for myself, the drive over there, my why, is just really, really propels me, right? And it's something that I also discovered very recently, and I feel like it's what we talked about as well. Like it takes some time. It takes life is like a journey, and you have to go on that journey to understand what drives you and what pushes you. So yeah, fear of failure is just about meeting your expectations and achieving your goals. And based off of that, what I've tried to do is to create a life and not indulge on those actions which results in an opposite um, of failure, right? So all of my actions, all of my thinkings, friends at this moment, the things that I do in my 24 hours are the opposite of failure, are the opposite of what I can do to not fail at reaching my expectations and reaching my goals. So this is definitely one of those things, because you're always thinking about dying without realizing your true potential. You're always thinking about, what if I pass this time and not do the things that I set myself for. So it's just very important, whatever your goals are, whatever your expectations of yourself are, you must acclimate your life according to that. We talked about routine, we talked about mindset. All of those things are a part of this. All of those things are a part of basically having like an abundant mindset as well. This is what I also think about. I've never been that sort of person which thinks that there aren't enough things in the world for you. There's always enough things that everyone can have, right? And you cannot fail if you don't lose. So it's just having that mindset, right? Just don't think that you're going to fail. Just try and do and see what happens. There's Life is always creating ways for you.
It's
So
not a
fear of
failure. Yeah.
Oh, definitely, yeah. So fear of failure is just one way to put it. Like Pramit said, it's just a way of describing it. I particularly don't like the word fear of failure, but what I'm really trying to imply is that you must do whatever it is in your life to meet your expectation, and don't let anyone or anything not attempt those things or not go on that path. That's just very, it's a very simple thing. The second thing I think what everyone can relate to is the fear of loneliness. It was very hard for me when I moved to Dubai, having leave behind all of my friends, my family back in Pakistan. It was a fresh start. But often than not, things in life changes in certain phases of your life. That is something I have experienced quite a lot. I think it was the same thing for you as well. It might be the same thing for a lot of people. So fear of loneliness is just like I said, I particularly don't like the word as well, but it's just again one word to describe it. But at the end of the day, it's just an emotion. It's just a fleeting thought that comes. Now that fleeting moment or thought can be for a while, can go on for days, weeks, or months, or can even be just for a day as well. But eventually it subsides, and then you realize that, you're not actually, it's like how you put it, you're not actually losing anything because it wasn't yours to begin with. I think only you, your body, your soul are the only thing that are yours, and everyone else. I think Omar Jahangir also put it very nicely in
Even
Islam. We
your
have this
body, I
concept.
would argue, is not. It's just,
Correct, correct.
yeah.
That's definitely in Islam as well. It's just not yours. You're just renting it out, and yeah. So it's just yeah. It's like what Umar Jahangir said as well. Like we're all musafir, so just take what you can in this life. But like a traveler, musafir is a traveler, so a traveler can't carry more than in modern time, let's say 37 kgs, right? Two suitcases at an economy flight. So that's just, yeah, you can take whatever you have, but definitely fear of loneliness. And I think particularly what people can relate to is that it makes you do things that you wouldn't do normally. It makes you act a certain way out of
Yeah.
desperation, that
Reactive.
you know It's just like perceiving it, just like holding on and just doing things which are not true to you. It's okay to let go. That's just how life is. And I also believe in one important thing, that certain things, job, people, pets, whatever, right, they are with you for a certain phase of your life, and once their duty, or once whatever their role is up in your life, that's it. Let them go, smile back, be happy that they were a part of your journey, and that's it. And that's how you move on. And again, tying the concept of abundance over here, oh, you have 8 billion people in the world, so many jobs, so many pets to choose from, whatever example you want to give, right? Just look forward to the next thing, look forward to the next adventure, look forward to the next experience which is valuable to you, which basically, like, makes you um a true person, which brings out the best in you. And that's it. So yeah, for me, these two things were at certain phases of my life really resonated with me. And once, like you said, I went head into the storm. Once I conquered those fears, oh, it's just like the life on the other side is amazing. And I think you're going to touch on that in detail as well.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for sharing that. I think some of the ones you touched on are so common, failure and loneliness. Uh, I feel like most people go through a variety of these in different ways, but there is one or two overarching fears that we live in on a habitual basis. Like I said, emotions are habits. So these fears we live in a habitual basis. And I've uh, been forced to sort of reflect on my own journey, and the findings I had have been crazy, and I'm glad, and I'm in a position where I can reflect it in such a depth. Uh, there's two fears, right? There's a physical fear and an emotional fear. So quickly to touch on physical fears, like I was when I got into started boxing and I sparred for the first time. That fear held me back again and again from boxing again, or sparring again, or fighting again, punching again. Uh, and it's that physical fear. I don't want to go through that physical pain or suffering. Same with maybe running, like after 20 kilometers, like your body starts hurting. It's not about it's just about like living with that pain and embracing it, right? So how I overcame those was, I just used to ask myself, what is the worst thing that could happen, right? At worst, I'll bleed through my nose, which I have. At worst, after running long distances, I might get injured. I might twist an ankle. I might be bedridden for a few days. What's the worst that could happen? Right? So that's what helped me push. But this isn't one of my biggest fears. My biggest fear that's held me back my whole life, and to this day it pops up again and again. And I feel like most of the endeavors I've taken in the past few years are just to sort of overcome this fear. It's the fear of judgment. I don't know why, what it is, the way I've been brought up, the surrounding I've been brought up in. uh, it was so judgmental, so judgmental. And I'm sorry to say this, but and I see this in, I've had to do a lot of work to overcome this. But I still see it in the surroundings, and the place I'm talking about is Karachi, our school and our environment. That place is full of judgment. What is judgment? Restricting your expression. You don't have a free expression, right? Your expression is uh, programmed and navigated by different judgments that you have, and you act accordingly. So the fear of judgment has held me back my whole life, pretty much. Still to this day, sometimes when I'm just without thinking posting stuff or posting my food or stuff, it's like, oh, what will people think, right? When I was starting this podcast, I was like, oh, how would people perceive me? How would I talk to the camera? This and that. And it has nothing's made me more happy in life, uh, uh, more happy in life than overcoming this fear of judgment. And when I do this podcast, when I express myself in different ways, uh, Still, there are instances when people do judge you, right? But it's just about how you respond to it, right? uh, and it's all about how you paint the picture within your head, right? I'm in such a beautiful space these days, full of self love. I have so much gratitude every day I wake up, and I give in to that. And I've just, it's easier to say, but like just becoming your own best friend, becoming your own companion, trusting your own expression and your opinion and your belief and whatever that you do, say, act, your body language, just having enough faith and confidence in that, like moving with conviction, like we say, right? So that's what I started doing, which helped me overcome these fears, amongst other things, like starting a podcast, talking to the camera, so many things that I never thought I would do had I not gone through this journey. And when I say that it's held me back so much, it's that not even the outside environment, it's how I perceive the outside environment. Every time I would go do something, I would have these thoughts running in my head, which would hold me back again and again. Or what would people think? How would this person think? Or this and that. So messed up. It's so messed up. And now I counter it with just one thought. Every time I have it, don't hold back, don't hold back, don't hold back. And it's just about having that belief, confidence, and trust in your own self that whatever you're doing, you're leading with purpose. You're the leader of your own reality and your own life. And just reminding that again and again. But the funny thing is, it will never ever like go away forever. Your response to it will change and it will get better. And that's because it exists in your mind. Mind is programmed from an early age. 95% of the mind is subconscious, and 95% of the subconscious mind is developed up until the age of 7. So whatever you experience, those things up until the age of 7 makes up your subconscious mind, and it generates 95% of your thoughts. You get 70,000 thoughts per day. 95% of 70,000 is a lot. It's 66.5 thousand. But the problem with that is that most of the time you're not aware, you're not conscious of every thought that you have. So now let's move on to how to overcome it. The number one thing that helped me overcome it, and you can share your experience as well, is meditation. I know I bring everything back to meditation, and I've been ridiculed a few times here and there for this. Like everything comes back to meditation because it is absolutely superpower. You have a body. Your goal in life too is to operate this body in the best way possible, give it the best of experiences, make it feel the best of emotions. The mind is the manual. If you learn to control the mind, you learn to control the body, you learn to control the life. How do you control the mind? Through meditation. What is meditation? Just awareness. When you're It will increase your awareness, so you're more aware of the thoughts you're having, and then you can respond to them better. The first thing is recognizing and acknowledging. Recognizing and acknowledging that you have a problem is half the solution. If you don't even know that you have a problem, you would live in ignorance your whole life, right? So just recognizing and understanding and acknowledging the problem is half the solution. And then it's just about practicing meditation to build self-awareness. When you build that self-awareness, you will be able to recognize those limiting thoughts of judgment, thoughts of fear, and respond to them better. I'm saying respond and not react, right? You'll come through this shift where you start responding to them consciously rather than reacting compulsively, right? And then it's just a process. The more you do it, the more you practice this habit of responding to it rather than reacting to it, the better you get at it. And it's just constantly about accepting and embracing it again and again and again and again. And like anything in life, it's a practice, it's a skill. Like I said, emotions are habits. Once you learn to respond to your fears rather than react to your fears, you'll build that habit, and then it will just become second nature, right? You wouldn't even require to put effort into it, and uh, and that's the simplest way of doing it.
I don't think I have much to add except for like two things. First of all, no, meditation I believe is fundamental. Like you said, mind control. It's the most important thing, and because look, everything that we talk about is about the mind. Because that's just some look like a thing which is abstract, thing that you cannot touch. You don't like you cannot physically mold it or try as hard as you can to alter it. It's very hard. It's very hard. I mean, like it's just so yeah. Meditation is one of the most easily accessible, executable practical tool that we have at our disposal. So I think it's beautiful. It has also helped me quite a lot as well, and both of us have a long journey in that realm. And
Yeah,
again, like I think I don't have much to add except for the fact, just adding on to what you said as well, these seven chief fears plus your fear of judgment is just about spinning it the opposite way. Like you said, what's the word could happen and why not? That's it. Like I believe there is no other answer to it, because however you spin it, everyone has to die, everyone will go. And like the example of Pat Cummins that I it gave, his when his mother said to him that um, people are going to do amazing things in this world, it might as well be you. So it might as well be you with whatever you want: a job, career, a car, a meaningful life, a business, whatever it is, it might as well be you.
100%. Beautifully said as well. After you get through the other side, you face the storm. You feel confident. You feel strong. You feel unstoppable. You feel something that you've never felt before. And I don't say that lightly. And that makes you question and wonder, like, so you keep doing that again and again and again. You grow so much. Uh, you become more aware and you start leading from a place of love rather than from a place of fear or loneliness or judgment, right? And that is a beautiful feeling that will take you very far in life. uh, Essentially, it's just about breaking free of your mental limitations. We mentioned this before, and we did a whole episode on it, that you live in a box of limitations, uh, that opinions, beliefs, certain fears that limit you from growing and progressing and proceeding further in life in the ways you want to. And that's why you become enslaved to it. So be wise and break free of your limitations and grow. And have a little bit of faith and courage, and get inspiration from people who face those fears and go for that storm and go with full power. Be the storm. You'll come out a different person on the other side. And that's our only wish and hope for you. Whatever your fears are, however you face them, do let us know in the comments below. Again,
Mm.
there's no way of avoiding fear. It's just about how you respond to it and how you face them. So uh, consider it a blessing, because it is a blessing. Just changing you respond to it will change your life. That's all from us.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining us and being fearless with us. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Keep supporting us as much as you can, and we will see you next week. Thank you.